There are a lot of reasons why the Raptors are currently down 3-0 to the Philadelphia 76ers, but in today's video, we want to figure out what the biggest problem has been over the course of this series. Let's get into it. What's going on, Raptors fans? It's Jacob here, back with AmateurHour Sports for another Toronto Raptors YouTube video. If you want the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news, then you need to be subscribed to AmateurHour Sports. And once again, this video is powered by Betstamp. The Betstamp app is not a betting site, but it tells you which of your favorite sports books is offering the best price for that sports wager that you wanted to make, and ensures you get the maximum value out of all of your bets. Right now, you can use the link in the description to download the Betstamp app or sign up online with code RAPS on referral, RAPS, to let them know that I sent you there. But let's get into our topic for today's video. I did ask this in a poll on the community page, but I also want to cover it in a video and try to figure out what really has been the biggest problem for the Raptors in this series. Today's video, a lot less emotionally driven than the previous video, so I'm a little bit more clear-minded and really want to kind of break down this series so far and how we got to this point where the Raptors are down 3-0 and what was supposed to be a very close matchup. And, you know, I had the Raptors winning this one in 7. I'm sure a lot of you watching this video had the Raptors in either 6 or 7. You know, maybe there's a little bit of bias involved in that. Maybe you just really believe in your team, and there's nothing wrong with that. But going into the series, that really was kind of the consensus that it was going to be a close series. And even though the majority had Philadelphia winning, I would say like almost everybody had this series going 6 or 7 games. I just could not see the reality where the Raptors are facing a potential sweep. So things have gone wrong for the Raptors. It is safe to say things have gone absolutely wrong. But what in particular about the performances has gone wrong? So we're going to try to break down a few things here. We're going to talk about individual performances, talk about the offense, the defense. We talk a little bit about the coaching as well to really figure this one out. So for starters, let's talk about the individual performances. Yesterday's video, a lot of people don't like the video, but I talked a lot about Pascal Siakam, and you know, opinions are going to be divided on Siakam, and ultimately, you know, we didn't show up in Game 3. He hasn't really been as good as I would have expected, and many of us would have expected him to be in this series. And Siakam is still a very good player, and it is such a small sample size. It is, you know, a really bad game in Game 3. Of course, he could bounce back in Game 4. I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with that game, but ultimately, Pascal Siakam is a fantastic player. He's the best player on this team. It is just a shame that, you know, this is the second playoffs in a row where he just really hasn't lived up to expectations. But, you know, it is beyond him. Fred VanVleet also been a little bit disappointing. He was as disappointing in Game 3 as Siakam was. All series, Fred really hasn't looked like himself on defense. He's really struggled in his matchups with Maxey as well, a little bit with James Harden. But it's been difficult for them because, you know, they did have good games in this series. You know, Fred hasn't been shooting his best at all, really, but Siakam has had good games. Like, he was good in Game 1, he was okay in Game 2, but there hasn't really been a game where the supporting cast and the main cast show up at the same time. Like Game 3, we really had that supporting cast working, but the main cast just wasn't there. Where in Game 1, it was more so the main cast was there, but the supporting cast didn't really give them enough help. So there really just hasn't been enough of like good performances in a specific game where the Sixers are getting like 4, 5, or 6 really good performances on any given night, and that's really helping them in this series. So that's part of it, but like, why are these players struggling? Are we going to talk about the offense here? Yeah, we're going to go into it, and I would say there's been a lack of identity in sort of our offense. I think our half-court offense looked pretty good in the Philly games, despite the fact that we did lose by so much, and it really did start to lack in the Game 3 at Scotiabank Arena, especially in the second half. Like, our half-court offense really was lacking answers. It wasn't getting the three-point shooting it was in the first half, so second half, it was really starting to struggle with floor spacing. Siakam was 0 for 5 from the field in, oh my goodness, in the second half as well as OT. Fred wasn't doing us any favors. I mean, OG Anunoby was attacking the rim, being aggressive, and he was getting his points. You know, maybe you can talk about OG. You know, he's not the main option, so he's getting one-on-one matchups. But the biggest thing is that OG was being aggressive. He was going to the rim and creating opportunities, drawing fouls. Like, that's what he was doing. He was creating these opportunities for himself, where other players in the team weren't necessarily doing that. And they've done it in the regular season. Like Siakam, he's super talented and more than capable of doing it, but he just did not look like himself in that Game 3. He really struggled with his ball handling. And I think the individual performance did kind of mar that performance that we had, which was a really good team performance in that Game 3. Offensively, I think throughout the series, we just have kind of struggled with the consistent three-point shot. And for that reason, the floor spacing is just going to be difficult. They're going to bunker down a little bit, make life difficult for the guys who want to get to the rim the most often, just like Pascal Siakam. So offensively, I don't think we were that bad in that case. I think defensively, we were much worse. We just really did not figure out how to guard Tyrese Maxey in this series so far. You're going to struggle with Joel Embiid. That's an MVP candidate. It kind of is what it is in that situation. But I think we could have done a better job on Maxey. I think we could have done a better job on the supporting cast. Like, we really have left a lot of good opportunities, like a lot of good players open. You can only do so much when you are worried about Harden and Embiid, but I would say your focus should have been more on Embiid. I think that we did not trust our defenders enough to deal with James Harden. Like, he hasn't been playing like, Houston superstar James Harden. I don't know why we've been treating him like that. And I don't think we realized that quick enough before we got ourselves in such a hole where that game 3 was so important. Our transition defense also was really, really poor in games 1 and 2, and that just helped put us into a hole. But game 3 really wasn't that bad. Like, game 3 was for the taking. If Siakam is a better game, if Fred VanVleet is a better game, if Precious Achiuwa hits one of his free throws, we could be talking about how this is a series. The Raptors are in this one and they got a chance to, get game 4 and really make it a 3-game series. But, we're not in that point. We're not in that point anymore. And, there's a multitude of reasons why that's the case. I've listed them here. We're also going to talk a little bit about the coaching. I think that Nick Nurse kind of failed to make a lot of these adjustments that I'm talking about. He failed to make some of these adjustments quick enough. Like, the Raptors, it's such a small sample size when you're dealing with the playoffs. When you don't make those adjustments quick, Philadelphia, a team as good as them, is going to bite you, and they have consistently done that. Doc Rivers, who I think is a very overrated coach, it's kind of showcased he's not that. He's kind of showcased, yeah, he is a good coach. He's making really good decisions out there, and it's been a big benefactor to his team. Like, they have just played really good basketball out there, and I think that's what the biggest reason of this comes down to. I asked in the poll, and honestly, I was surprised by the answer because I agree with the answer here as we see in the poll. It's not about just the Raptors. Like, sure, they've struggled with different things. Individual performances have not lined up on the same night. We have struggled on offense. We have struggled on defense. Maybe Nick Nurse hasn't made some of the best decisions, like putting nobody on the inbound pass for that Joel Embiid 3 at the end of game 3. Like, there should have been somebody on Danny Green as he's inbounding that, but regardless of all that, I think that what we learned the most from this series, and the biggest reason why the Raptors are in this hole, is that Philadelphia have just been amazing in this series. And, coming into this series, I wanted the Sixers. Out of all the top 4 teams, I would have taken Miami. But when that wasn't a choice because they were going to be the number 1 team in the East, I wanted Philly over Boston. I wanted Philly over Milwaukee. And I still stand by that. I still think we match up the best with them. I don't think this series would be going much better against Milwaukee or Boston. Your opinions could differ, but I wanted Philly out of those teams. I knew Philly were a good team, but I didn't know they were this good. I was a little bit worried because I've been saying, typically the team with the best player in the series wins the series. And they've got Joel Embiid, who is probably going to be that best player, and James Harden's probably the second best player in that series. And Joel Embiid, he's played like that best player. He's absolutely looked like an MVP out there, like pretty much every night. Like, even, with game 2, he had a lot of help from the refs, sure, but game 1, he was good. Game 2, he was still good beyond the officiating. And game 3, he was just absolutely spectacular. I mean, that 3-point shot, like, that is an absolute dagger. What a crazy shot from such a talented player. You got to respect that. As much as you may not like Joel Embiid, you got to respect that. Doc Rivers is doing a great job coaching this team. I think he's doing an excellent job of leaving like very offensive oriented players out there to help with Joel Embiid. So as soon as you double Joel Embiid, he's got 4 shooters around him. One of them is going to be open. They've defended extremely well in this series. They've done a great job on Siakam. I had my question marks about Tobias Harris. He's done a pretty good job defending Siakam, and offensively, like, he has really surprised me with his level. I thought Tyrese Maxey was good. I didn't know he was this good because there's like nobody on the Raptors who's been capable of guarding him. I mean, that game 1, 38 points. He won them that game. So I think at the end of the day, the Raptors have been disappointing, and that's something you can be upset about. That's something I'm upset about for sure, but you also have to give a lot of credit to how good this Philadelphia 76ers team has been. So I would say that's the biggest reason. Like, the Raptors, there's just like a lot of things adding up that just haven't really gone their way here. But the Sixers have made sure we've gotten nothing out of this series. And I'm sure they're going to be smelling blood looking to end this one in 4. So I got to give them credit. Their defense has been great. Their offense, like when they needed that supporting cast, they knew Nick Nurse was going to make life difficult for the number 1 and 2 option. So you need the supporting cast to beat you. I mean, they absolutely have. Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, like when the 3rd and 4th option are playing like that, it's going to be difficult for any team to come up against them. So, big credit to the 76ers. Much better than I thought. I really didn't see them doing this well in this series. I didn't see the Raptors doing this poorly, but that is a situation we're in. I think the biggest reason for that title of this video, the poll I was making, is because the 76ers have just flat out been too good for the Raptors. It does highlight the things that need to change for the Raptors. I'm not sure if that is Pascal Siakam. I really don't think that is Pascal Siakam that needs to change. But I think ultimately what needs to change for the Raptors here is that, this roster clearly is not good enough. I mean, injuries haven't helped over the course of this series either, and that's another big thing that I actually haven't mentioned in this video. But I think that the Raptors roster just isn't quite filled out enough to be this competitive without that true bona fide superstar on your team. So that's something that needs to be worked on in the offseason. Bring in a point guard. I think you still need to bring in a true center. This series has highlighted that. And, bring in more depth. Bring in some solid depth to this team that is going to do a better job than some of the guys. I mean, I've loved Boucher and Achua. Thaddeus Young has done a pretty good job, but we can do better with that depth, 100%, and that needs to change if the Raptors are going to be even more successful, because this season has been phenomenal. They can be even more successful next season by doing these things, but let's pray we don't get swept. So what have you guys made of this? Do you guys agree with me on this one? What do you think is being the biggest problem for the Raptors? Let me know your thoughts and opinions. We can start that discussion in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please drop a like if you did enjoy. It goes a long way to supporting the video. I mean, hey, if you're watching at the end of the video, you clearly enjoyed it. And make sure you're subscribed to AmateurHour Sports to get the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. Tons of content coming for the offseason and for the rest of the playoffs, no matter how long that is going to be. Sign up to Betstamp with code RAPS and join our Discord. The links for those are in the description, and I will see you again next time for another video.